Alright guys, so today we are going to talk about federalism, the division of powers. And so we're going to talk about what led us to a federal system. We're going to talk about the definition of federalism. We're also going to look at some of the powers that are granted to the national government, to the state governments, and then some of the powers that both the national and state governments share. We're also going to take a look at the Supremacy Clause. So federalism defined. Federalism is the division of government power between a central or national government and its regional governments, aka state governments in our case. This is usually divided by territory, so state governments have a say in state matters and national governments have a say in national matters. And we talked a little bit about this in the past, and we talked about how basically the national government cannot handle national issues as well as state issues. It's just too much responsibility for one system of government. And so it allows states to have some powers in order to manage the states effectively. Okay, each of these levels of government has its own set of powers, which is where the term or phrase division of powers comes from. Neither level acting alone can change the basic division of powers the Constitution has created. So what I want you to go ahead and do is turn to page 89 and read the 5th and 6th paragraph under Federalism Defined, and then answer these questions below. So what are two examples of federalism allowing local actions in matters of local concern? And what is one example of federalism allowing national actions in matters of national concern? Okay, so for the first question there, examples of federalism allowing local actions in matters of local concern. So, for example, you can pump your own gas in 48 states, including Ohio, but you cannot in New Jersey and Oregon. Also, North Dakota is the only state that does not require voters to register before they vote. Every other state requires this. Another example, 5 states do not have sales tax: Alaska, Delaware, New Hampshire, Montana, and Oregon. The second question, what is one example of federalism allowing national actions in matters of national concern? So this would be like when we have a natural disaster that hits a particular state. If the state can't handle the disaster, then the resources of the national government and all other states must be mobilized to aid this stricken area. And we've seen this happen with Hurricane Katrina, and then our most recent hurricanes, Hurricane Harvey, Irma, and Maria. Okay, so why federalism? Why did the framers choose a federal system of government? So most did not want a government based on the British model. Obviously, we had separated from the British, and we had been controlled by the king, and we did not want to see the same system of government used here in the United States. We did not want to be controlled by a dictator or a king, a monarch. However, they also did not want a weak government, like under the Articles of Confederation. Obviously, not giving enough power to the central or national government did not work out either, and so we knew that we needed to find a balance, and that balance was federalism. And the framers created a limited government for us. So parts of that was that the exercise power, or government power, poses a threat to individual liberty if not restrained. And so the framers believed we have to restrain the power to some degree, or the system will be taken advantage of and individual liberties will not be upheld. Second, that to divide government power, as federalism does, is to curb it and so prevent its abuses. And so, as I said before, this would prevent abuses from taking place by certain governments, and this would divide governmental power. So it would give not just power all to one system, but it would give it to our federal, national, or central government, and then also our state governments. And that way, no one government has all of the power. Powers of the national government. So, powers of the national government. We have delegated powers, or the national government has delegated powers. It is only those powers delegated or granted to the national government in the Constitution. And there are three distinct types of delegated powers: expressed, implied, and inherent. So express powers are actually written in the Constitution. They are spelled out expressively, word for word. They are also known as enumerated powers. And the majority of these are in Article 1, Section 8. And it lists 27 powers that Congress has. Other express powers are set out elsewhere in the Constitution. Okay, implied powers. These are also given to the national government, but they are not expressly stated in the Constitution, but are reasonably suggested or implied by the expressed powers. The bias for this power is found in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18, and it gives Congress the necessary and proper clause, aka the elastic clause. And we've talked about this just a little bit, and basically the necessary and proper clause allows the national government to take an expressed power, one that's written in the Constitution, word for word, and basically add to it as they see fit or as they see necessary for our government to be effective. So some examples of this would be the regulation of interstate highway system. So nowhere in the Constitution does it talk about a highway system, but it does say Congress can regulate interstate commerce and trade. And so under this power, Congress has also decided that this gives them the power to regulate the interstate highway system. And that would be an implied power from its express power. Inherent powers. These powers belong to the national government because it is the government of a sovereign state within the world community. While few, they are not expressly provided in the Constitution. So this is kind of a power that is crucial to our government. Some examples: the power to regulate immigration, deport undocumented aliens, acquire territory, grant diplomatic recognition, and protect the nation against rebellion. And so these inherent powers, guys, are somewhat of a traditional power, something that we've had, national government has had the power to do in the past, and they also feel that that power is important for us to run an effective government. So one other thing I just wanted to mention really quickly about the necessary and proper clause, also known as the elastic clause, was just where the elastic clause, that name, comes from. And basically they call it this because it has been stretched to cover so many situations, or those expressed powers, I guess, have been stretched to include so many implied powers. This chart here is just to help you better understand who has what powers. So if we look above this line here, it says that our delegated powers are given to the national government, and again, those are expressed, implied, and inherent. We also have the state over here, and they are given reserved powers by the 10th Amendment. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a couple of slides. Concurrent powers are going to be the powers that the national government and the state government share. So whenever you hear the word concurrent, it just means shared power between national and state government. So these are all the powers that they are granted, state and national. Below the line here is going to be denied powers. So there are certain powers the national government is denied, certain powers that are denied to the states, and then there are certain powers that they are both denied. And again, we'll talk more about those coming up. Okay, so powers denied to the national government. Three ways of denying expressly denied freedom of religion, speech, press. Basically, with this one, the national government cannot deny the citizens of the United States freedom of religion, speech, press. They can't deny citizens or they can't search people's homes without a warrant. They can't deny any person a speedy trial, a public trial, trial by jury. Basically, some of those, or not all, some of those, all of those amendments in the Bill of Rights. These are expressed and in the Bill of Rights, and the national government cannot take these things away. All right, the second one here is silence of the Constitution. So the national government is a government of delegated powers, meaning powers that are given to the national government. And it's important that you understand that if it's not listed within the Constitution, then the national government doesn't have that power. And so one example of this would be the Constitution says nothing about divorce laws, and so therefore they do not have this power to make decisions when it comes to divorce laws. And then the last one here, the federal system itself denies powers, and this basically just says that the national government does not have the power to take actions that will get rid of the federal system. Okay, the states. So the states are given reserved powers. These are in the 10th Amendment. It basically says that there are powers, important powers, reserved for the states. The powers of the Constitution does not grant to the national government these powers, and it does not deny them to the states. Their scope of power is vast because most of the work is done at the state and local level. They have one express power. It is found in Section 2 of the 21st Amendment. This allows states to regulate the manufacture, sale, and consumption of alcoholic beverages. The state government can set up tobacco and alcohol laws. This is the one express power. Gambling, public schools. The state government cannot enter into treaties, coin money, tax the national government and its agencies, and we will talk about this court case that took place in 1819 a little bit later on. Coin money. So this is interesting. One of the reasons why we don't give the power to the states to coin money is because this was a serious issue under the Articles of Confederation. And so basically, the states were allowed to coin money. And we talked about this a little bit. So you would go from state to state and you would have to exchange your currency out for that state's currency. And it was such a hassle. It was basically like going to a foreign country every time you went from state to state. And it was just a big ordeal. And the system of currency was not the same throughout the nation. And so we gave this power to Congress to coin money in Congress alone. That way we didn't have this problem reoccur. Exclusive powers are only exercised by the national government. Example, coin money and treaty making. Concurrent powers are powers that are shared by the state and national governments. Example, collect taxes, definition, and punishment of crimes. Examples of delegated national government, reserved would be state government, and concurrent would be shared. All right, the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause is located in Article 6, Section 2, and it states that the Constitution stands above all other forms of the law in the United States. This clause brings the national government and states into a single governmental unit. If we were to create a hierarchy of laws in the nation, it would look like this. So the United States Constitution would be at the top, acts of Congress and treaties underneath that, state constitutions underneath that, state statutes underneath that, and then the city and county charters and ordinances would be at the very bottom. And so the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land and trumps all others below it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I don't have much time, but the Supreme Court acts as the umpire in the